That's a fascinating question. And the answer is absolutely no. One God he's designated by singular personal pronoun. What gives you any hint that one God, the Father, or in John 17:3, you, Father, are the only one who is true God, o monos alithos theos. That is absolutely clear. Tell your child, too, you, James, are the only child standing right in front of me. He doesn't argue with that. What in the world would make anybody imagine that one means more than one? It's the numeral one in Hebrew, echad. Is, I'm using the modern Greek pronunciation. They do that at Harvard, too. It's a very beautiful language. Is means one. Ask any Greek about counting. Is means one. And monos means only one in John 17:3. So I see no reason for even raising that question. Decent historians, many, many scholars, know that the Trinity is not something they did in the Bible. Jesus was a Jew. It's like saying, what sort of software did Paul have on his computer? What sort of car did Paul drive? It's a silly question. No. The Trinity is a foreign, an alien, added idea. That's, I know, going to be an unpopular idea when people hear me say that, but Jesus was a unitary monotheistic Jew. I know, I'll tell you why. In Mark 12, he was asked by a friendly Jew, tell us, what is the greatest of all commandments? And guess what? Jesus recites the Shema. It goes like this, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And nobody had any difficulty with that. So I would recommend you give that very clear historical thought. Say to yourself, what sort of a person was Jesus? Guess what? He was a Jew. Get real historically. If you'll examine the subject in our Focus on the Kingdom magazines over the last 20 years, you'll find many, many scholars admit that the Trinity is not remotely to do with Scripture. It's an additional thing concocted, I think, by church fathers who said, we don't like that Jewish thing. Note the anti-Semitism there. Don't be anti-Semitic. Jesus was a Jew. That doesn't mean the Jews don't make mistakes. That's not my point. But Jesus was a Jew. He was reciting the Jewish Shema. The issue here is, are you going to follow Jesus or not? 1,300 times, get that number, 1,300 times in the New Testament, the Father is called God, Ortheos, the God, the one God, the only one who is God. 1,300 times. Doesn't that give you a hint as to how those writers are thinking? Of course. Now, there are a couple of occasions where Jesus said, I and the Father are one. But there he didn't say one person. We're united in one mind. But Jesus also said, I want you disciples to be one in the same sense that I and the Father are one. I've got that. No God could be one person as well as his Son being the same person. That's evidently not possible.
Looking up a quote here, I actually recently just read this book by James McGrath.
Yes.
Called The Only True God, if the listeners would want to check that out. But Dr. McGrath makes a simple, obvious, but important point on pages 39, 50, and 53. I'll just read the first paragraph here. He says, the fact of the matter is that Paul does not say that there is one God who is both Father and Son. This is in relation to 1 Corinthians 8:6.
Yes, good.
Paul says rather that there is one God and also one Lord. The fact that a human figure is called Lord does not, of course, imply for Paul that God is thereby divested of his lordship. No, indeed, all things other than God are subjected to Christ because God has placed them there.
Now, that's a very interesting quote there, because Hurtado is the one who keeps talking about the divine identity of Jesus. So splitting the Shema is a nightmare. You can't split God into pieces. 1 Timothy 2:5 solves all problems. Relax on this one. 1 Timothy 2:5. There is, creedal statement coming up, there's one God and one mediator between that one God and man, the man, Messiah Jesus. Paul is insisting, as he does in 1 Corinthians 8, where you have one God, who is obviously the Father, and one Lord Messiah. Now we're getting back to the bedrock of this whole subject. That's Luke 2:11, where the birth certificate, they're so thrilled about the arrival of Messiah. And what do they call him? The Messiah Lord, not the God Lord. You see, the New Testament writers weren't messing with God here. Heaven forbid.